What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What's good? What's up? To want the inner part of his ass crack. Blue about me not being his dad. After reading the book, she was like, "What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What's good, people? What's up? What's up? What's up? What is up, people? What's up? It is me, L Teddy 27, and I am back for yet another review. This, ladies and gentlemen, will be our review for the HBO Max limited series, Call Me Miss Cleo. Listen, y'all, this is the much anticipated documentary on HBO Max about Miss Cleo. Call me now. My Jamaican accent is about as, accurate as hers. Anyway, call me now and let Miss Cleo answer your questions. Now, if you were not alive during, I know we have some Generation Zers who were maybe not alive or maybe not old enough to know about the phenomena that was Miss Cleo in the late 90s and early 2000s, but you couldn't get away from her. Now, I am born and raised in Miami, South Florida. Grew up there, lived there, all of those things. And Miss Cleo is out of South Florida. She's out of Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, which is the next county over from Miami-Dade County. So we were enthralled in the entirety of the Miss Cleo phenomenon, the scandal, the all of it, everything surrounding it. The psychic reading network was based out of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. So we were, whether or not you wanted to know about it, you couldn't get away from it. It was on the news. Every other commercial was call me now. And to be frank and honest, most people in South Florida were thoroughly embarrassed. Like, it was like, what the hell is this? And people are falling for it. We'll get there. So, and if you're going to go watch, it's not a hard watch. It's not. Sometimes documentaries are hard watches where it's so hard to get through it. This was about an hour and a half. It wasn't a hard watch, and when I had come into it, we were told that we were going to chronicle her life from when she grew up, from the beginning all the way to her demise. That ain't happened. We'll find out why. So we start the documentary off with, some well-known celebrities. You had Raven Simone, you had Deborah Wilson. We all know who Raven Simone is, but Deborah Wilson, if you remember, is from Mad TV. And they were talking about the phenomenon that was Miss Cleo. Now, if I'm going to be honest, their commentary was okay, but they didn't have a relationship with Miss Cleo. They weren't close to her. They didn't know her. And so their commentary isn't any different from mine. I mean, can I get a spot on the documentary and get paid to do commentating, on it? Like they are, because they're kind of doing what I'm doing. So they can get their own YouTube channels and do like I'm doing and comment on it. Anyway, so they start off introducing people, maybe Generation Zers or people who forgot about the phenomena of the infomercial back in the 90s. Y'all know back in the 90s, listen, infomercials, once the television rolled around, see, it's not like today where on network television or even on cable television, you had programming 24 hours a day. You pretty much had programming until about 11:30, 12 o'clock. After about 12 o'clock, definitely by the time you got to about 1 or 2 on the East Coast, it was all infomercials all night long. So you would have an infomercial about something someone was selling, a set of kitchen knives, or you might have had an infomercial about some scientific product, or some new hair care line, or some sex line, or 976 numbers. The younger people don't know what 976 numbers. We all know what 976 numbers. A 976 number was a sex line, or 1-900 number was a sex line. Anyway, so there was that. And if you remember, we had Dionne Warwick and the Psychic Friends. That started, I want to say, early 90s, maybe late 80s, but I'm going to say that started early 90s, like 91, 92, somewhere around there. You had Dionne Warwick and the Psychic Friends Network, and she was the face of that whole phenomenon. They were charging people, just ridiculous prices. I mean, You had to mortgage your house, cut out your kidney, and cut out your friend's spleen, sell all of them on the black market, and then try to use that money, put it on the stock market, make some money, and then have enough money to pay these goddamn bills. One thing I was now, as a child, I might have got in trouble for calling video jukebox or the box where you had to, the little show where you had to call in, pay 99 cents to play your song. And by the time they played your song, it was like 4 or 5 hours later, and you never heard it. That was about the only thing you was gonna get me for on the phone bill. All the 976 numbers, I knew better. You weren't gonna get me. So, but it was the rage, psychic friends, and here's the deal. And we're gonna get to Miss Cleo, but I just want to preface and start you off with this. The deal is this: what these companies capitalized on was they knew there were a lot of people going through a whole lot of stuff. They didn't have a whole lot of outlets. There was no internet back then or social media for people to be on. Hell, people didn't even have most people didn't even have a cell phone back then. So they didn't have an outlet with which to just talk to somebody and let off some steam or whatever. Now we have social media. You hear an insane amount of information on an insane amount of people that you really don't even want to know. Like people will tell you, "Oh, I just farted," and now it's all over their social media. Oh, I just just stupid. Like there's too much of people disclosing every facet of their existence. But back then there wasn't a lot. So a lot of America was looking for an outlet, especially white America. They always looking for somebody to vent to and listen to their problems. Anyway, so we get to the late 90s, and this company wanted what they the psychic reading network was already a thing. They had a black lady that was on there before Miss Cleo. She left the company, and they were shuffling around trying to find the right person, and they weren't getting any traction. Up comes Miss Cleo. She watches the story goes, she saw the psychic reading network, and she called the people and said that at the company and said, "Hey, y'all got to do better than this. This ain't it. Y'all, what are y'all doing?" Because she was professing to be a psychic. And she said, "Listen, I am a real priestess and a psychic, and y'all need to do better." So the people were like, "Well, then, girl, come on." And she went and did one audition, and it went from there. Now let me give y'all the real deal from South Florida. Remember I told y'all I'm from South Florida, so let me tell y'all what we in South Florida thought. The first time I saw Miss Cleo on television, I remember I wasn't home. I was in college at the time. It was late 90s, maybe like 98 or 99 or somewhere around there. I was in college. And I remember seeing it in like my dorm room or something like that. And I was like, who is this lady and why is she trying to impersonate a Jamaican accent? I grew up in Miami. There might be just as many Jamaicans in Miami as there are in the country of Jamaica. Like I grew up around Jamaican people. I know a Jamaican accent when I hear one. And what that woman was doing wasn't no Jamaican accent. And most black people that I know, even being in school and talking to other black people in school with me at the time that weren't even from Miami and didn't even grow up around a whole lot of Jamaicans, they even said she sound fake as hell. You know what I'm saying? Because she just didn't sound authentic. And so I think a lot of Black America looked at it like it was like a SNL sketch or Mad TV sketch or an In Living Color sketch. And people were like, girl, what are you doing? Like, that is not a Jamaican act. Like, girl, you really tried it. So we just laughed. It was just like, it was just comical to us. We didn't think that people really would, it would catch on, but it became a phenomenon. White people will fall for anything. White people think all black people look alike. Anything, they can't tell the difference between a Jamaican patois, a Bahamian patois, somebody from Trinidad and Tobago, somebody from Virgin Islands. Like there are very distinct accents in all of these areas, and if you aren't used to being around black people, you think it all sounds the same. Just like they think all black people look alike sometimes. Like it's just foolishness. So white America fell victim to their own need to be racist. I don't know how else to put that. And well, should I go as far as to say be racist? Yeah, and we'll get there in a second because there's more underlying things to that. But they fell hook, line, and sinker for it. We then get a flashback. They take us back to when Miss Cleo did a documentary when she was alive called Hotline, And in this documentary, she really like laid it out everything with the psychic reading network and what happened to her and how, she rose to fame and how everything, came crashing down and how horrible the company was to her and the things that they did to her. She really opened up about that. So we see throughout the documentary several clips of her talking about her experience as Miss Cleo or with the psychic reading network and so forth. And in one of the clips, she describes herself as a priestess with the ability basically to speak to the dead. Now, if you asking me, her ability to speak to the dead is about as spot on as her ability to have a real and true Jamaican accent. It ain't real. Now, if you gullible enough to fall for it, girl, go ahead. Be my guest. Spend all your money. But those of us who know better, child, girl, child, a mess. Anyway, so the other thing I noted in the documentary was she had a lot of white friends. Like all of the people speaking up and talking about her in glowing fashion were all white people. Not a single black person. Not one. Not even a member of her family. Not even a single member of her family. Which was odd to me. And they were all telling stories about how, at one time or another, she accurately foretold the future for them. One guy talked about, oh, she told my friend that he was going to have complications on his left side, and 2 weeks later, he had a stroke. I mean, I don't know the validity to all of that. I don't know what did and did not happen with all of these people and their alleged experiences with her and her ability to foretell the future accurately. But this is what the people said. I told you they all white and gullible. Two of the guys was like, "Oh yeah, she's our godmother and everything." One of the guys was acting like he didn't even know what it meant to have a godmother or be someone's godson. Like that was the first he had ever heard of that. Charlie was just a mess, just a damn mess. So then we go back. This is the part that I liked. They took us back to Seattle in 1990. Well, not 1990, but in the early 1990s. So we meet these two people. I didn't write down the black woman's name. There's a black woman, and then there's this black man named Steve Sneed. I meant to write down the black woman's name. I should have wrote it down because we saw more of the black woman than we did the black man. But it's the black man and the black woman. They are the black man is the executive director at this place called the Langston Hughes Center. The black lady also worked was one of the people on staff and worked with at the Langston Hughes Center, and it's like a performing arts center where it's like a theater where theater troops come in and they'll do plays and different things like that. But it's all black people. Langston Hughes, of course, so it's all black, and it's in the black community. They talked about the fact that there's not a large black community in Seattle, but they are very tight knit. And so, and they show pictures of the center. It's a beautiful center. Um, so they talked about meeting her. And back then, she was going by her actual name. Now, we know her name is Ure Harris. However, I think she said her full name is Ure Dale Cleomili Harris. Something like that. Anyway, so this is where we finally see the black people, okay? So she told them her name was, she went by the name Ray Perry. Ray was short for Ure. Um, and so that was the name she went by that name there, and they came right out and said it. Miss Cleo was a character that she created, um um based on a play. She was doing a play, and the play that she was working on called for a woman of Caribbean descent and so forth. And Ure created this character, Miss Cleo, for that play. The name of the play was called For Women Only. And she was supposed to play the character, Miss Cleo. So she was in charge of the whole play or whatnot. Come to find out, they gave her all of this money. They gave her thousands of dollars to put on the play. She was supposed to pay the other actors in the play, as well as production team and so forth. So they gave her all of this money and said, "Okay, listen, we need you to take this money and we need you to pay these people based on out of the money that we gave you." Baby, she ain't paid the people nothing. Mama took that money and I don't know what she did with it. Baby, she ain't give nobody no damn dime. So They said of course the people was mad, like what the fuck is our goddamn money. So they said she started coming up with all of these elaborate stories, said, oh, I have cancer, so people will feel bad for her, and started making up all kind of excuses. And baby, they weren't here for it. Now they told us from the beginning, we got a small black community here, baby, you can't get away from us, we gonna get you, girl. So she basically ditched town, never paid the people. They ain't hear from her no more. So she moves to South Florida. And like I told you, the story goes, she's watching television. She sees the Psychic Reading Network and Psychic Readers Network, and they it was some trash. And she was like, "Well," they said. Now the story goes that she called the people down. Now I don't know. They didn't. They weren't very specific. Did you call one of the psychics and say that, or did you find the number to the headquarters? Like, who did you call? We never really got that story. They just said she called the people, and they made it sound like she called the people at the headquarters and told them, listen, y'all, this ain't it. Y'all got to do better than this. I'm a whole priestess, and I know what I'm doing, and y'all need to do better. So they called her down there. She did an audition, and they hired her to host, and she just blows up from there. White America falls in love with her. And I vividly remember that time, like she was everywhere. So the problem is this: she's only one person. She could only take, she would have these shows and take calls on the show, but during the course of a show for about an hour, she might take 10 calls. That's only 10 people. You have thousands upon thousands of people calling in. They ain't speaking to no Miss Cleo. Even if she was answering the phones, she couldn't very well answer the phone for all of those thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over America that's calling in. So what do we have? We had people on the other end of the lines that want nobody's goddamn psychic. Baby, these people had a book, and the book had a script, and their job was to keep the people on the phone as long as they could, to milk the people for the money as long as they could. And that was it. And then their job was to get the person's phone number and address, name, phone number, and address. And now they would start to do the other arm of the business, which was send you all types of spam mail in your real mail. This ain't no email spam. This is your real mail. You go to the mailbox and now it's flooded with all of these ads and advertisements. So that was their job. And so these people had no clue what psychic was. Some of them couldn't even spell psychic. Baby, can you read the script? You can read the script? Okay. You had people faking personas and all kinds of stuff right off the street. One man said, "Oh, they hired me just because I had a real Jamaican accent, because the man was actually Jamaican, had a real Jamaican accent. They just hired me right then because I had a Jamaican accent, and that played into the whole Miss Cleo persona." So they then talk about how after she blew up, you started to see a lot of parodies of Miss Cleo. And most of the parodies were black people doing parodies on Miss Cleo, because we saw Miss Cleo for what the fuck she was from the beginning. Like, girl, what are you doing? Like, girl, like, why you playing? Girl, that ain't no Jamaican accent. Girl, stop playing. Like, we knew it was a sham. Like, black America, the whole of black America looked at white America like, girl, this what y'all doing? This what y'all falling for today? Girl, girl, girl. Girl, that's literally what you would say. You look at these white people just clamoring to call me. You be like, girl, 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 girl. That's literally what you would say, child. Anyway, honey. So, white people, like I told y'all, wanted to believe that this woman was actually who she said she was. This shaman, Jamaican shaman that was a priestess that knew voodoo and all of this stuff. But and they talked about this on on the documentary, how it plays it played into the racist nature of white America. And they took us all the way back to the days of Mammy and white America. A lot of white Americans in the South had a mammy, and they looked to that mammy for comfort and for advice and for nurturing. And having this woman that had this Caribbean accent kind of played into that. The way she dressed, the way she looked, even her physical aesthetic played into that. It made them feel like, oh, I feel safe. I can trust her. They wanted to believe she was who she said she was. All of the clues were there. All of the red flags were, pointing at this is a sham. But they wanted to believe it. It plays into the whole racist nature of white America, all the way back to the 1800s, early 1900s. Plays right into it. I ain't mad at it, Miss Cleo. You want to take white America for all their money? Going on here. They done raped us across the coast. Might as well get it how you live, honey. Girl. So, um, um, so this went into the whole notion they wanted to trust her opinion, trust what she had to say was real. And she was saying stuff. What would trip me out, I think I watched it a couple times, right? Just to laugh. And what would trip me out is every now and again you'll get a black person that will call in and they would just be like so floored and enamored by what she was saying. And I was like, girl, I could have told you that just now. You call in and say, oh, well, can you tell me if my boyfriend cheated? Yes, honey. You already know he is. Girl, why you even asking me a question? Mm-hmm. And then what did the person do? They start to give up their permission because he did come late home the other day, and I think I did smell something on him. Girl, you already know what you are thinking is right. Stop even questioning it, baby. You might as well go ahead and let that go. That's the kind of stuff she would do, just playing straight off of what that person said. Now, I'm gonna say that about Miss Cleo. Do I feel that there are actual genuine people that can actually do that? Yes. I'm not one of these people that think, oh no, that's not possible. Nope. Even in the Bible, you learn about prophets and people who have that ability to be in tune with, you know, just the whole spiritual realm and foretell the future. There are people who have that ability. And even the good book, the Bible says gifts. If you believe in Christianity, the Bible, even the Bible says gifts and callings come without repentance. If you have that gift, doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. That's just the gift you were born with. Do I believe Miss Cleo had it? Girl, not so much. Anyway, so then we realized because I kept saying, but girl, when are we went to the early 90s, but bitch, when are we gonna learn about her background? So then the white people that was all her friends, none of them knew her backstory. Everybody had a little piece, and like after she died, they all came together and tried to put a piece this part in the puzzle and put this piece in the puzzle. And after they put all the pieces together, they assumed that they had come up with the whole puzzle and figured out her backstory. But none of them knew her backstory and they just believed whatever she told them. None of them had ever grown up with her. None of them had met her family to validate what she told them. So they were only hearing her side of it. Girl, y'all know white people gullible as hell. So allegedly, she told them that she came to America that she's, according let the white people tell us she really is Jamaican. She ain't Jamaican nowhere, but the white people still holding on to her being Jamaican. So she tells them she came over to America at a very young age, and for whatever reason, her mama had to give her up for adoption, and she ended up getting adopted by this Jamaican lady. And the Jamaican lady had a bunch of kids there. And the Jamaican lady wasn't real nice to her or whatnot. And she ended up going to an all girls boarding school. Now that part was true. They had pictures to verify. They had receipts for that. They had a picture of her in high school at this all girl boarding school. Now Miss Cleo says that when she was I don't know if it was when she was with the psychic people or whatever, but when she would go places, people would tell her, "Well, don't tell nobody you went to all girl." I think it was with the psychic network. She said, "Don't tell people you went to all girls boarding school. It doesn't help your story. Your story, a mess." So they cut back to the black people. Um, and so the black people in Seattle. So the black people in Seattle said, "Baby, when we saw her on TV, we all was like, bitch, what? Girl, she doing this character on TV? Bitch." They probably started calling each other like, girl, turn to channel 7. Girl. Do you see this hoe? That's the hoe that wants that motherfucking money. This bitch done fool white people into thinking she really Jamaican. She just playing this character. Bitch. That's how that conversation went. Child. Come to find out, Miss Cleo, when she did the other, remember I told you she was doing that other documentary. Now she did start telling some tea on the Psychic Readers Network. So she said them people was making as little as 12 cents a minute. 12 cents a minute? That ain't a whole lot of money. 12 cents a minute. How much money is that an hour? Let me do some math right now. Okay, 12 times 60. We're gonna do the Six times. So that's like $7.20 an hour, and that's only if you keeping people on for that whole hour. Girl, that ain't no money. Girl, that's a mess. Anyway, so then they start to get into the legal trouble that the Psychic Readers Network was starting to have. And I remember when that all unfolded. I remember we had this state attorney general for Florida at that time was Bob Butterworth, and he was not fucking off back then. I remember he was cracking down on all kinds of shit back then, and they cracked down on the Psychic Readers Network, and Miss Cleo was running from the cameras. I remember the local news at the time would be trying to follow her, and she would be trying to hide and running from cameras and shit. But you never saw the people that was in charge of the Psychic Readers Network. It was always Miss Cleo. She was the face of it when it was big, and maybe she was gonna be the face of it when it was going down. Just a mess. So there were different states that were filing lawsuits against the parent company, Psychic Readers Network. None of them had Miss Cleo in the lawsuit except for Florida. Florida decided to put Miss Cleo in the lawsuit because on one of the documents, now she say somebody forged her signature. They say it's hers. We don't know. The shit said Cleo. I don't know. I mean, I guess it is a forgery since her real name ain't Cleo. But that's a whole nother. I guess that is part of her middle name. Girl, whatever. Anyway, so then a nosy ass white lady in Seattle decided to be nosy, so she wanted to unpack the story. So she started calling around to the people down to the Langston Hughes Performing Arts Center and started to try to find out what was going on, what was happening. And they started to tell her different things. So she started, you know how white people do, they started peeling back the latest and doing their investigative reporting. And she starts to unpack all of Miss Cleo's lies, honey. So then they cut away back to the white people that's her friends. And so now each one of them is talking about how she has multiple personalities. So when she wants to take a break, she'll morph into this complete other person. Like one lady said she would morph into a man and her whole mannerisms and the way she carried her body and her voice and everything would change. And I'm like, what the hell? Just a mess. Anyway, so and each one of them had called out a different character that she would become. So now we drifting way far into mental health issues and mental health disorders, multiple personalities. Like they said, it was a whole like you really thought you was in a room with a whole different person. I was like, really, really, girl, white people shit. Anyway, um, but then they kept the white people kept trying to validate, oh, she had been through so much trauma as a child, and this was her, and her being Miss Cleo as a psychic and helping people is her way of confronting that trauma by helping people, because they was falling front, hook, line, and sinker for it. They told this story that she had told them about being raped as a child. Now I don't know if the lady was raped or not. I don't know. I'm not going to negate that woman's story. If she say she was, she might have been. I don't know. But some about, I think one of the boys down to her in her house that with her adoptive parents raped her or something like that. I don't know, but all I know is they was like, yeah, when you experience that kind of trauma, it's so sad. You can't help but try to help other people, and it's so sad. So many people came against her, knowing what she had been through all her life. Girl, Miss Cleo then on. Remember, I told you they showing clips from this documentary. Say they paid her $1,750 for that first commercial she made, but the company made millions of dollars off of that first commercial. All she got was 1750. A mess, just a damn mess. They even owned her image and likeness and the whole Miss Cleo persona. They had rights to all of that because hell, they knew it was fake. Mm. Anyway, the feds got involved. The Federal Trade Commission got involved, so now they investigating and all that. It just became a whole mess. My thing about it is this: for all of these people saying that they didn't know who she really was and whatnot, don't you have to submit actual documentation to verify who you are? If you on somebody's payroll, like don't you have to submit like social security or a passport or an official state um issued ID or driver's license or something? I'm just saying. Now she said she was an independent contractor, but even with an independent contractor, you still need their information for IRS purposes. I don't know, child. It all just sounds like a mess. So when they started doing the lawsuit, eventually they figured out that Miss Cleo was not the henchman, so she was dropped from the lawsuit. And the owners of the Psychic Readers Network ended up settling out of court, and they had to pay like millions of dollars in fines to the FTC, Federal Trade Commission. But they did not have to admit any guilt. They settled without any admission of guilt. Just a mess. So in the aftermath, after all of this happened, she became a recluse. Like she was a hermit. She never came out the house. Like she retreated into her home and didn't come out. And I can tell you, like, I remember the news media outside her home. Like I could see why she didn't come out because people would literally stake out outside her home just to get a glimpse of her going out and checking the mail and stuff like that. Like that's the kind of stuff that was going on. Um, and so her one of her friends from the Psychic Readers Network, um, who became, her friend, of course, one of the white people came and said, "Baby, you coming out? You just coming out this house?" And they drug. He said, "I literally had to drag her out." That's a lot of drag because if you've ever seen Miss Cleo, she ain't no little woman. Like she's a big woman. And when I mean big, she's tall. Like she's a tall woman. She's taller than a lot of men, and she a healthy woman. So she became and she talked to just to mention that part, she talked about that, about growing up and how since she was a lot bigger than most of the other girls, she was a little more heavy set as a child, but she was tall and heavy set, and so she stuck out like a sore thumb from all of the other girls. So she started so they talk about how her friends started to get her out the house and have her go to different places. So she was hanging around a lot of the Rainbow Coalition, the LGBTQ plus community in Broward County. The Wilton Manors areas and stuff like that. Like if you're familiar with Broward County, she was hanging in that area, the Wilton Manors, with all of the white gay people, not these gay people, not these gay people. Okay, just saying. So she and the reason that I keep saying that because their whole thing was she is who she says she was. She's absolutely Jamaican. She absolutely went through all of these things. How dare people not believe her? And they had this actual Jamaican woman that was on there on the documentary, like, girl, she ain't nobody's Jamaican. Girl, stop playing with us like that. Like, really stop this. Like, really. It's disrespectful to the entire Jamaican diaspora. But so she became an activist, and they had her in some pride parades. These people, not these people, okay. And she was grand marshal for one of the parades or whatever. Anyway, so she came out as a lesbian in 2006, and they showed us some of her lesbian partners or whatnot, and she kind of lived out. She went living out the rest of her life, just trying to be happy. So then we find out in 26, was it 16? Yeah, 2016, she went on a trip to Bahamas, and that would be her last trip. She had had cancer for a while, and nobody knew. And she came back home, and she went into hospice and ended up dying. And the friends talked about that. But and it kind of the documentary, at that point we are at the end of the documentary, and they end the documentary trying to, pull on your heartstrings, trying to make you feel so bad for her because these white people are hell bent on believing the story, not. And even one of the white people on there that was a friend of hers basically said, well, it doesn't matter if what she said was true or untrue, or if her life story is real or unreal. What matters is she was a special person. I don't I wouldn't want to be friends with somebody who lied to me the whole time and everything I knew about you wasn't true. I don't know what to believe. Hey, you ain't even respect me enough to give me the truth. And now I'm just supposed to be like, okay, that's okay. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it does matter. You're responsible for people losing thousands and thousands of dollars. Like there were millions upon millions of dollars in lawsuits that were filed against that company, all on your lies. Child, it was a mess. And it kind of went off from there. Listen, it was a lot. It was good to get some of the story, but I feel like they missed the mark. They didn't do who was in charge of this. They really didn't go and do a lot of investigation. Like there was the one lawyer who was a part of the case in Palm Beach County, and he talked about somebody had called him and given him what they believed to be her birth certificate, which was out of Los Angeles, and it had her name, Ure Harris or whatnot, and that she was born to an American woman, not a Jamaican woman. But it was I don't think the documentary did enough to give us her backstory. Like you spent all of this time introducing us to these white people that just had, fell hook, line, and sinker for everything that she was telling. I don't think they spent enough time on the black people in Seattle that was like, girl, we weren't here for it. And so I think there was a whole lot of missed opportunities and missed moments. Why didn't they call some of the people? They had the picture of her when she was at the all girls boarding school. Why didn't they call some of those girls that she went to school with and say, "Hey, you mind telling us about Miss Cleo when she was in school with you?" Like, I don't know, child. I I left disappointed. I was very excited about it, but then I left disappointed because they just didn't delve deep enough into it. And so we're left with, clinging to these white people that just wanted to believe all of the story. It was a mess. I felt that I was going to say I felt like it was a certain amount of queer baiting, but I'm not going to say that because the woman did come out as a lesbian in 2006. But there was a lot of emphasis on that. When to me, that's not why we came to this documentary. We didn't come to this documentary to know about her being a lesbian. We came to this documentary for you to give us the real deal story about how this woman lied to all of white America, and you ain't do that. Anyway, y'all put some comments in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Let's do what we do in the comment section. Let's argue about what we saw versus what you saw versus what I saw. Y'all hit the like button, share, and all of that good stuff. That's all I got for y'all. Until next time, thank y'all for coming. Y'all drive safely. I'm out.